Good morning. My name is Mandy Mintz, and on behalf of our group, Adrian Clapp and Deborah Lee, I will be demonstrating Prometheus, our multimedia application. This is the first opening screen to Prometheus, which is the user login screen. And as you see, it has a nice visual image of Prometheus off to the right, which is representative of our name, which is Prometheus. It allows the education institution or organization to input their information right below there, assigning ownership of the tool. The basic user login is right there situated in the center. It allows for users to input their username or their email, their password, and log in. It provides a function for them to access their forgotten password or their user login. And it also allows them to access a new registration account. If they are a new account for the first time, it will take them to a pre-registration tutorial screen. This will provide some basic information because there are two types of users within Prometheus. There's the educator and the student, and it provides some information regarding that structure. It also gives them some information on what kind of user login information they can use. So for instance, if they have a student ID or a educator ID, they can use that information, which will link them to their appropriate user account. I selected the NYU user registration pre-registration tutorial because I thought it was representative of what I wanted to achieve going into the pre-registration, and our group really liked this setup. Once they've input their information, or input their student or educator ID or their basic password or login information, it'll take them to setting up their profile. They can link again, or I should say they have an opportunity to link again with signing up with Google or sign up with Facebook. And then we just have their basic profile information right here. If they didn't have a student or educator ID, there'll be a selection here where they can select educator or student and save that information. Based on the selection what association they have with their student ID or educator ID, it'll link them to their appropriate resources. For a student, it'll bring them to their student workspace. Their student workspace is set up from left to right and begins with a picture of the student. The student has an opportunity to load a picture of themselves, giving another element of ownership to the tool itself. If they don't want to, set up a picture that's more than okay, it'll just represent a nice silhouette of a person right up here. It'll give the student's name, and it'll provide a workspace for all of their assignments, which they can access here. Down below that is their groups, which they can see all the groups that are available within the content that they're working in, and allows them an opportunity to select multiple groups across various classroom settings. That way they can work together within the group inside their classroom or across classrooms. It just provides another level of collaboration. In the center, you have the group form setup where they can engage in conversations with their groups, and their teachers can provide feedbacks to those groups or engage the groups overall. It has some basic reply and tag functions. So if they want to tag a particular conversation because they feel it's going to assist them later on with developing their argumentative essay, they can tag it here, and their tags will be listed off to the right here by date. And they can just provide a generic information. So if they're working on a particular discussion on liberty, for instance, it'll just say group discussion on liberty and then the date. It'll also have their notifications set up here to the right, which lists maybe what information is coming due, and whether or not they've submitted certain assignments will also be listed here. Our group felt that social media is important in today's digital age, and we wanted to provide them with an opportunity to access that social media through a Twitter or social media screen down below. That way, they have another level of collaboration, another forum from which to engage. If you're an educator, you have two screens. You have, or I should say, two workspaces. The first workspace allows them to manipulate content within Prometheus because it is fully manipulable, I guess you might say, fully manipulated, and they can access it right through this workspace. They can enter their compelling question here, and then they can begin by placing, drag and dropping resources within each one of the sections. They access that information over here to the left, which we've provided a search function, and they can find resources, open results, and place resources. They also have the basic global button set up at the top. The educator also has a workspace, which is their main workspace. So if they ever want to modify the content, they'll have a modified content button sitting up here, and they have a home page as well, which takes them directly to their home page. This is considered their home page. They're basically set up just like the students. They have the assignment, which they can assign over here underneath their name. They have the groups that they can join or they're a part of down here. And then they can select each one of these groups and it'll access through the forum right over here. Their forum is right in the center as well, which they can engage each one of their groups, or they can select all of the groups here and engage all of their groups over here. It also provides them with reply and tag functions. Tags will be placed over here to the right. And what's a little different between the students and the educators is they have a student progress screen right here. This allows them to see all of their students' reports in one easy to access workspace. So they can filter by class, or they can see all of their classes, and they can see each one of their students and their progress, how much time they're spending on there, what level they're at, and that way they can provide appropriate feedback based on this information, as well as access to viewing their evidence matching if they're working through crafting data, and viewing their essays as they work through the argumentative essay section. It also allows them a button to download all student essays and a Twitter screen or a social media outlet right here. There is a home page to each one of the modules, and so when students or educators want to access the modules, they'll select modules and select the home page to Prometheus. And then they can access each one of these buttons, which takes them to the module. So that way, if they're starting out for the first time, they can go directly to Fire, and they can work through those modules. And then it'll have a active bookmarking. They leave the system, they come back in, and they can go directly to where they left off. For instance, if they remember they left off in Construct, then go directly to Construct, and it'll go to that page of where they were last on. Once they access their button, it'll take them to their first page. This is the first page of the Fire module, which is very basic. It just provides an opportunity to present a nice visual image that is reflective of the compelling question entered by the educator. They also have their navigation buttons selected at the bottom. Now, Prometheus allows for multiple pages within each one of the modules, but the Fire module is basically just presenting the compelling question and providing a nice visual stimulus to engage the student. You can create multiple images or multiple pages, but you don't have to. The first page of the construct is basically set up with some scaffolding research. The educator can input a video, which first presents the information, and they can work through other primary and secondary sources based on that question for them to first start exploring and engaging in on that compelling question. They select their navigation buttons as they work through multiple screens. There's only one or two screens, and they would only have one or two buttons positioned down here, and then the green progress clouds show their progress as they move through. This is the first page to the Explore module. The Explore is right aligned with the Dimension 3 of the C3 framework, where they evaluate sources and use evidence. The information is first presented in, well, I should say that the Explore module is tutorial based. So you'll have some basic information, and it'll provide questions of that information and allow the students to respond to those questions. These images can be hyperlinked or incorporate hypermedia within the tutorials. That way they can access more information within this one module. They can navigate through each one of the pages down here at the bottom. And this brings us to our final module, which is in line with Dimension 4, where they can communicate conclusions and take informed action. The craft module is set up for them to be presented with a particular case study or topic where they explore that story, and at the end of that story, they take informed action. So our idea here is, they've got some directions set up here, which we allow for closed captioning and it to be have some narration for the visually impaired, and they can pause that information, right here. But the story will be presented in this space down here for reading or listening. And then they explore the evidence that supports that story over in the right-hand side. The evidence can be selected by selecting the button, which will up the screen and provide that particular evidence. And then they go back, selecting the go back button. It'll bring them back to the main page where they can select the second evidence. But our idea here is that they explore a particular question or case study relevant to the compelling question. At the end, they take informed action and communicate their conclusion. So, and then this screen is basically just a workspace where they develop their essay. I've provided a nice visual of each of the steps within an argumentative essay format, and they would basically select the introduction button, which will open up a writing space here to the left. The background paragraph opens that space, and so forth and so on as they work through. We have a nice progress bar, which changes in color as they move through and shows when they are complete. I'm also thinking of putting a button up here where they can see it in Google Doc or Word document format, and they can manipulate the information from there. Once they are complete, they can view their essay by selecting the download essay in Google Doc or Word format, and then they can submit it by selecting the submit button up here. And that concludes our demonstration of Prometheus.